Throughout the ages, pagan sun worship has been the apostate form of religion which opposed the true worship of our Creator. Knowing that sin is the transgression of the law and that the wages of sin is death, our adversary, by way of various aspects of sun worship, attempts to persuade us to break the first 4 commandments, which teach us how to love the Lord. In the book of Corinthians, the Apostle Paul expresses fear that just as the serpent beguiled Eve, believers would be deceived by another gospel and another spirit, leading people to worship what he calls another Jesus. Not the Jesus of the Bible, but an impostor. In the year 273 A.D., the Roman Emperor Aurelian instituted the cult of Sol Invictus, which became the religion of the Roman soldiers. Various aspects of worship included water baptism, the sign of the cross, a Lord's Supper, and the December 25th celebration of his birth. The day of worship was known as Day Solis, the Day of the Sun, or Sunday. Frescoes or wall paintings depict the sun god Sol Invictus in exactly the same manner as supposed paintings of Christ, with the nimbus or radiant glow around the head. Most people calling themselves Christians, when shown a picture of Sol Invictus and ask who it represents, respond by saying Jesus, without the slightest hesitation. The Apostle Paul's concerns were well-founded. Let us consider his advice. If he that cometh preacheth another Jesus whom we have not preached, or if ye receive another Spirit which ye have not received, or another gospel which ye have not accepted, ye might well bear with him. Welcome to our program, Too Long in the Sun. Last week you heard us speak these same words. This is part 2 of our program entitled Another Jesus. So we invite you to join with us as we earnestly contend for the faith once delivered to the saints. We're going to trace Mithraism, or the worship of Sol Invictus Mithra, from the Grecian Empire right on to the Roman now. As we do that, we'd like to go to our screen and look at some scriptures, and we'll be looking at Luke 2, 1 through 7. And I'll put this right on the screen. It says, "And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn." Now, this is the real Jesus we're talking about here. This is a picture of Caesar Augustus. Remember, that was one of the names mentioned in the first part of these scriptures. We hear a lot about Caesar Augustus, but very few people stop to realize that Caesar Augustus was a sun worshiper. We've already covered the fact that most of the emperors were sun worshipers, that it came in from the other empires, and Caesar Augustus worshiped Mars, Jupiter, and Apollo, and these are sun gods. Now, this is a picture of Ahura Mazda. This is a review from our last program. Ahura Mazda was the Persian religion that was brought into the Grecian Empire. This is the image of Ahura Mazda. Here we see Nimrut Da. And once again, on our last program, we saw how the worship of Mithra, which is one of the gods of Ahura Mazda, came into the Grecian Empire. And we see on top of this mountain here, Antiochus shaking hands with the sun god Mithra. Also in review, we talked about Mithra. You can see that his birthday here is December 25th. You can see the Phrygian cap. And of course, Santa Claus has the very same hat on around December 25th. So many things that have come down to us came straight from pagan sun worship. Now, this is a fresco that was on a cave wall in Caesarea, and we'll be having a closer look at that in just a few minutes. But we'll start part 2 of Another Jesus. We're going to be following it from the Grecian Empire into the Roman Empire. So once again, in review, this is a map of the Grecian Empire of Alexander the Great. We talked about the fact that Mithraism came into a little country by the name of Kamjan down in south-central Turkey. I was there on some archaeological work and was privileged to be able to go up there and document what's there. Had no idea what I was looking at that time, but what we found was that this was the place where the Persian sun god Mithra came into the Grecian Empire. It was freezing cold that day. We had a hard time taking pictures, but our Heavenly Father had sent me up there before I ever knew anything about what I'm talking to you about today, and allowed me to document these things so I can share them with you. So that's what I'm here to do today, is to tell you what I know. This is the Grecian Empire. We'll go on to the Roman Empire at the time of Caesar Augustus, who was a sun worshiper. Once again, here's this little country, Kamjan, and in 17 AD, Tiberius annexed this little country into the Roman Empire. And when he did, he spread the Roman soldiers all over the empire, or not the Roman soldiers, but the soldiers from Kamjan, and Mithraism spread all over the empire. And there's hundreds of these sun worship caves all over the Roman Empire, including a couple of them even in Israel. And if you look at the map there, you can see that Israel was part of the Roman Empire at that time. Now, in the year 273 AD, the Roman Emperor Aurelian instituted the cult of Sol Invictus, and this became the official religion of the Roman soldiers. Then Diocletian came along, and he burned up all the scriptures so people couldn't check anything out, and that way they could slip this into the organized Christianity of that time. We see here the fresco from the cave wall. This pagan sun god's birthday was December 25th. His day of worship was Sunday. They did have a water baptism, a Lord's Supper, and also used the sign of the cross. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with baptism, but Satan has imitated the truth in order to sell the lie. He's the father of lies. Once again, here's a coin of Diocletian. He's the one that destroyed the Scripture. And then Constantine came along claiming to be the first Christian emperor. But the question is, was he really a Christian? Now, this is a coin minted from 306 to 337 AD. It has Constantine's picture on the front, but look what's on the back. The pagan sun god Sol Invictus, with the inscription, Sol Invict to Committee, or committed to the invincible sun. Constantine was a pagan sun worshiper. Now, after he claimed to be a Christian, he had himself set up atop a tall column in Istanbul as Apollo, the sun god. Now, today this is called the burnt column, and what happened is lightning struck it, and I have no doubt that our Heavenly Father didn't like that column too good, and so he burned it up pretty good, and it's now called the burnt column. And after Constantine also claimed to be a Christian, he had his wife and two sons murdered, our eldest son murdered. And so if you ask me, this is not Christian activity. I believe he was a pagan sun worshiper masquerading as a Christian. And we'll have a look here at what he did. In the year 321 AD, on March the 7th, Constantine passed a decree, and he said, all judges and city people and the craftsmen shall rest upon the venerable day of the sun, or day solis. Now, this was in honor of the sun god that he worshipped. Sunday rest has nothing to do with our Creator. The fourth commandment says we're to rest on the Sabbath day. This rest is in honor of another Jesus. And that's what we're talking about in this program. Now, this is a quote from the History of the Christian Church by Schaff. You can find this in all seminaries. This is common knowledge. This tells us that Constantine enjoined the observance, or rather forbade the public desecration of Sunday, not under the name of Sabbatun, but under its old astrological and heathen title, Day Solis, familiar to all his subjects, so that the law was as applicable to the worshipers of Hercules, Apollo, we just looked at Apollo, and Mithra, remember, Sol Invictus Mithra, as to the Christians. There is no reference whatsoever in his law either to the fourth commandment or to the resurrection. Those theologians are well aware of the fact of what happened in 321 AD. It was in honor of another Jesus. Now, we always like to include a little video clip that gives you more details and kind of shows you some pictures. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, so this will do a whole lot more talking than I can. This presentation is entitled Caesarea, so we'll go ahead and have a look at that now. Caesarea Maritima, or Caesarea by the Sea, is located on the Mediterranean Sea up in northwestern Israel. This is the aqueduct that brought the water down to Herod's palace there at Caesarea from the mountains. This is actually the hippodrome, or they call this Herod's amphitheater. This is the seats of Herod's amphitheater. Now, you can see way over in the top left corner there's a building over there. And as they were excavating these areas, they found a sun worship cave to the sun god Sol Invictus Mithra. These are the excavations. I've been getting in those excavations for several years now before sunrise. I have an archaeologist who's been sneaking me in there to have a look before they destroyed the evidence, you might say. You can see the altar there at the end of the cave. There's the oval ceiling, and we've seen this in many, many areas. In fact, in one of our other programs, we've talked about the fact that in Bethlehem, the cave there is actually a cave of sun worship for Tammuz, the pagan sun god, known to have been born on December 25th. And of course, Sol Invictus Mithra, who was worshipped in this cave, that was the day of his birth also. Now, you might notice the hole in the ceiling there, and what would happen is on the solstice, the sunlight would come through that hole and shine on that old pagan altar. This is a fresco that was found in the cave. We've enhanced it just a little bit so you can see it better. We go from the real view there to the enhanced view. And basically it's a man with his hands standing out, stretched out with a glow around his head. And many people would say that was Jesus, but it's not. It's the pagan sun god, Sol Invictus Mithra. You can see the glow around his head, and that comes straight from pagan sun worship. The priests would set their head on fire and make it glow for the initiates. Now that fresco's been removed. You see here's how it's been removed from the wall. Nobody knows where it is now, and I may be the only one that has pictures of this that you can see. But basically it proves the fact that Sol Invictus Mithra was worshipped in this cave, and it goes on with the glow around his head, and if you ask people, they say it looks like Jesus. Now, there's some other caves next to it. You can see bats all in these caves here. But the caves next to it were probably also sun worship caves. Sybil was worshipped in conjunction with Mithra, and although we're not sure exactly what went on in these caves, there's passageways between them. This is Origen School, and believe it or not, Origen School is right above the Mithra cave. Now, he was a pagan philosopher who claimed to have become a Christian. He had a school here in Caesarea, and many of the modern translations of the Bible comes from Origen's fifth column. In the margins of the Tischendorf manuscript that was found at the Mount Sinai, that is not Mount Sinai, it says that it was written by Pamphilus from Origen's fifth column. And these are the remains of the area where Origen School was located. You can see the mosaic floors. This is the hole where the sunlight came into the Mithra cave, and it's right in Origen's backyard there. Origen was from Alexandria, Egypt. I believe he was probably associated with the worship of Sybil. The priest of Sybil castrated themselves, and Origen did the very same thing. And then he went on to teach the allegorical interpretation of scriptures. But here's the hole that leads right down into that sun worship cave where Mithra, the sun god, known to have been born on December 25th, was worshipped. We know that Jesus was not born on that day. We do know exactly who was born on that day, or alleged to have been born. Sunday worship came straight from Sol Invictus of Mithra. And this is another Jesus. This is what the Apostle Paul warned us about. And here it is, December 25th, Sunday worship, Easter, which is associated with the pagan sun goddesses, right up in our churches. The Apostle Paul says if anybody comes to us preaching another Jesus or another gospel or another spirit, he says you might well bear with him. And that bear with him means don't go along with it. It means stand up to him. And so that's what we're here doing today, is earnestly contending for the faith once delivered to the saints. At this time, we're going to go over and join with Pastor R.C. Sandifer from the Wichita, Kansas area. And Pastor Sandifer, we thank you once again for being with us.
Pleasure to be here.
Can we combine pagan sun worship with the true worship of the Creator and everything's just okie dokie?
Well, we can, but it's not okey dokey. We can because we have. You know, it's very much been combined. And I think it's proper to say here that we're not necessarily coming against the having a service on Sunday and teaching people and worshiping the Father on Sunday. What we are coming against is the ignoring the Sabbath, which the Father told us to keep holy, and that is His holy day. And we, as the traditional church, have ignored that. And in our culture, most of the time, that's the day we do all the extra chores that we're supposed to catch up on. And, you know, we work during the week, and Saturday is a good time for us to have to do our chores. Well, that's the day that we're forbidden to work. We're not supposed to do any servile labor on that day. And I don't see where Yeshua rescinded that command, and certainly all of the law and the prophets have not come to be fulfilled yet. So he said that not one dot nor tittle will be changed until this happens, so it must still be in effect.
That's right, and that's a good point. A lot of people are a little bit confused on that. The fourth commandment says nothing about worship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we know that the Sabbath was called a holy convocation.
That's
It's a
right.
good time to meet.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Jesus preached in the synagogues on the Sabbath. We know that the Apostle Paul did.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that during the first century, the whole known world was resting on the Sabbath. And that's something most people are not aware of.
That's right.
We know when the ladies went to the tomb, they prepared the spices, rested the Sabbath day according to the commandment, and then went back to the tomb. Now, the question is, why in the world would they do that if Jesus had taught them you don't have to worry about the Sabbath? But getting back to the point, the fourth commandment says nothing about a day of worship. It's a good day to do it
That's right.
because you don't have to work. You're supposed to work 6 days
That's right.
and rest the seventh day. But you're the best example of that I know, because you know, you rest on the Sabbath.
Yes, sir. I
But
do.
you have you have a fellowship on Friday night, Saturday, which is the Sabbath,
Yes, sir.
from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, and also on Sunday.
Yes, sir.
So it's not a day of worship. I mean, the fourth commandment is not regarding worship. It's regarding rest. And when you think about it like that, the people that want to, they say, well, we can, you know, we're worshiping on the first day of the week because that was the day of the resurrection.
That's fine.
But that's
Worship on
fine.
the first
Nothing
day.
wrong with that. But if you don't rest on the Sabbath, it's a sin.
That's right.
And the Bible says so.
Yeah, and it says not to even buy or sell. You know, so it's what it is just to cease from all your fleshly labors.
I have a letter here we might address. We can try to answer this. This is from a viewer. It says, I am very thankful for you and for your dedication to reveal and spread the truth about the deceit that God's children have brought into over the centuries. The newspapers are an excellent idea, and what she's referring to here is the Too Long in the Sun newspapers, the little inexpensive newspapers. They're a good idea to get the word out in a form that is concise and therefore palatable. I do have one big concern, though. My heart is to see Messiah's body united in love and functioning as Yeshua intended, observing His words as He ordained. His under-shepherds, as deceived as they may be, and you know, that's I don't think a shepherd ought to be deceived.
No, sir.
However, are the means to seeing the majority of the sheep set straight and put on the right path to keeping His commandments and ordinances. I agree with that. They ought to do that. The subtle, what religious leaders do not want you to know, the newspaper says, Too Long in the Sun, what religious leaders do not want you to know, seems like a pretty general and strong judgmental statement which will turn the very people who need to be informed of and corrected of the perpetual heresies, and unfortunately, very few sheep will launch out into uncharted territories without the leading of the shepherds. Now, it was not my intention to offend anybody with that. The things written in that newspaper are the truth. And the leaders that want people to know that are not the ones I'm talking about.
That's right.
But the leaders that are hiding that information, that are well aware of that, and are hiding it from people, that are leading them in the ditch, are the very ones I'm talking about.
That's right.
And it says in the Bible that their mouths must be stopped. And if we don't stand up for the truth and contend for the faith, like we talk about on this program, that was once delivered to the saints, then they're going to keep getting away with it.
It's, to me, what the person who wrote this letter is dealing with is unity, and that's kind of a new concept that's come along today. Accept anything, politically correct, everything is okay. Accept you as you are, rather than as you should be. And we have a set of commandments and statutes, the way we should live. And if we don't operate in those guidelines, then we're a lawless generation. And if the blind lead the blind, as you said, they both fall in the ditch. Well, I go back to, the Word tells me I ought to walk as Yeshua walked, and I ought to do what Yeshua did. I don't see that Yeshua placated the religious leaders of that time. He was very nice to them. He called them hypocrites. I mean, now that would be a pretty strong statement. Do you think that kind of alienated them people from him?
Well, they wanted to kill him.
Yes, I think they did. They
That's
did,
right.
yeah. And this is the thing. I think it has nothing to do with people's feelings. It has to do with the truth. And if you're a truth seeker, you'll hear truth, and it will ring in your spirit. The Word said that He sent us another Comforter, that would lead and guide us into all truths, that He might remain, that Comforter might remain with us. So we should be being led by the Spirit, and if we're led by the Spirit, we should know truth when we hear it, shouldn't we?
Yes, sir. We sure should. And, I didn't know these things myself, till I got to studying into it. I was shocked to find them out, but it's still the truth.
It's the truth.
Let me go read the letter. It kind of carries on with what you were saying there. It says, I've worked with pastors for several years in a citywide prayer ministry, and like God's chosen children of Israel, most of them view the Scriptures through doctrinal and denominational tradition rather than having worked through the biblical issues themselves. Well, that's terrible accusation on them there. I've found that most are very sincere, but sincerely wrong about certain issues, especially the Sabbath. It seems to me that the vast majority, it seems to me that with the vast majority, that it's not a matter of not wanting the sheep to know the truth, but a matter of knowing and being sure of the truth themselves. They read the Scriptures through glasses colored by their theology. Until they are prayed free from the bondages, so that they may consider the Scriptures for what they are really saying, the veil will not be taken away. And what I always tell people is, I believe that it's okay to be sincerely wrong about something. But I don't believe it's okay to teach something wrong, even if you're sincerely wrong. You better check out what you're teaching. We are going to be held responsible for our teachings.
Certainly. The thing about the letter that really gets my attention is that these people go to seminary. They know that they are omitting the Sabbath. They understand where it comes from. They understand all the things that you've talked. They've been taught that. The thing they've been taught is that it doesn't matter. But the Word's different. I mean, if I'm going to teach, I either have a choice of teaching doctrines or teaching the Word of Yahweh. And here it says to teach the Word. We're not to vary from the Word. And if we're sincerely wrong and we're trying to get to New York going south from here, we're going to be swimming before long.
That's right. You got a long ways to swim, too,
Yes.
before you get back. And I think that's what's happened. We're swimming the wrong direction. At least I was. And I want to swim in the right direction now.
Yes, sir.
Once again, I didn't know these things. It was a shock to me when I found them out. But the three major components of traditional Christianity are, in fact, pagan in nature. And what I'm talking about is Christmas, Easter, and Sunday rest. They're identical to the worship of Baal that we read about in the Old Testament, and they're in honor of another Jesus, not the Jesus of the Bible. I wrote this book too long in the sun. I never intended to write a book, but I knew that once I learned these things and documented it for myself, I had to write down so that I could share it with other people. And the little newspaper that we talked about is a very inexpensive newspaper, and the reason we wrote that, Pastor, is so that we could just get the information out. We sure don't do this stuff to make money, but if you're interested in more information, we'll be happy to send you one of those little newspapers. And we just encourage you to check these things out. Many people don't know that. And Jesus said that many would come in His name saying, Lord, Lord, we've done all these things in Your name. And He said, we've prophesied, we've cast out devils and done many wonderful works. And He goes on to say that He will tell many people, and the ones that do that call themselves Christians, depart from me, I never knew you, ye workers of iniquity. And that word iniquity is anomia, the transgression of the law, the same word used in 1 John 3:4, where it says sin is the transgression of the law. So what Jesus really says is that He'll have to tell many people that do wonderful things in His name, depart from me, I never knew you, ye that transgress my laws. Satan is the father of lies. He's using the same lie today that he used in the Garden of Eden. He wants us to question God, and he asked, hath God said? Hath God said, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy? Many of our leaders today tell us we don't have to worry about that anymore. That's been done away with. But Jesus said that until heaven and earth pass away, not one jot nor tittle shall pass from the law. So I just asked you to consider those first 4 commandments, that we not have any other gods before Him, that means in His presence or before His face, that we don't make graven images, and many of the things found in churches today are actually pagan imagery. The other one says we're not to take His name in vain, and the other one says to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. So until our next program, we just invite you to earnestly contend for the faith once delivered to the saints.